frosting, blue sugar flowers along the edges, exactly the way she used to make it, exactly the way she had made it, every single year for as long as Marcus could remember. But she wasn't there to make it this year. She wasn't there at all. Marcus stood in the doorway of the kitchen and stared at the cake, and for a long moment he couldn't breathe. His daughter Lily, 9 years old and small for her age, stood on her tiptoes beside the counter, a plastic spatula in her hand and blue frosting on her nose. "I tried, Daddy," she said quietly. "I watched the video 3 times. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, walked across the kitchen and crouched down until he was eye level with her, and he held her face in his hands and he said the only true thing he could find. "It's perfect, baby." It wasn't perfect. The flowers were lopsided. The top layer leaned slightly to the left. The frosting was too thick on one side and barely there on the other, but Lily had watched her grandmother make this cake every year since she was old enough to stand at the counter, and she had tried with everything she had to bring something back that was already gone. That was 6 months after they lost her, 6 months after the hospital, the quiet room, the hand that went still inside Marcus's own. 6 months after his mother, Gloria, 61 years old, the loudest laugh in any room, the woman who called everyone baby and meant it, left a hole in the world shaped exactly like herself. The birthday tradition had always been hers. Not just the cake, all of it. Every year, on the 15th of March, Gloria would spend the entire day doing small, secret kindnesses for strangers. She called it her birthday offering. She said once that the best way to celebrate being alive was to remind other people that someone saw them. She would pay for the coffee of the person behind her in line. She would leave handwritten notes tucked under windshield wipers with things like "You are doing better than you think, and somebody today is glad you exist." She would buy an extra bouquet of flowers at the gas station and hand it to whoever looked like they needed one most. She would sit down next to the person eating alone at the food court and just ask them how their day was going. She never told anyone she did it. Marcus only found out because he followed her once when he was 15, curious and a little suspicious, and he watched his mother give a homeless man not just her spare change but her lunch, and then sit beside him on the bench and ask him his name. The man's name was Theodore. They talked for 40 minutes. Marcus never forgot that. When Gloria died, Marcus inherited her tradition the way you inherit something you don't feel worthy of, with reverence and with terror. The first year without her, he stood in the parking lot of a grocery store on March 15th and cried for 10 minutes in his car before he could make himself go inside. Then he bought 3 bouquets of flowers and gave them to strangers and thought about her with every single one. But this year was harder. Lily's grief had grown quieter and somehow heavier. The house still smelled like his mother sometimes in ways he couldn't explain, in corners where her presence had been deepest. And Marcus found himself wondering if the tradition was too small, for how big the absence was. Then he made a mistake, or something that felt like a mistake at first. He posted about it. It wasn't supposed to be a big post. He was sitting at the kitchen table one evening in late February, and he was looking at an old photo of his mother, standing in this exact kitchen, covered in flour, laughing. And he wrote something honest because he needed to put it somewhere. My mom spent every birthday giving small kindnesses to strangers. She called it her birthday offering. She said life was the only gift worth celebrating, and you did that by reminding people they were seen. She died 8 months ago, and her birthday is March 15th, and I don't know how to make the tradition feel big enough for how much I miss her. Her name was Gloria. She called everyone baby, and she meant it. He added the photo of her in the kitchen, posted it, went to bed. He woke up to 40,000 notifications. He sat up in bed at 6 in the morning and stared at his phone and couldn't process what he was seeing. Comments, shares, messages from strangers with names he didn't recognize, from places he'd never been. "I'm doing this on March 15th in her honor. My family is going to do the kindness tradition. We'll be thinking of Gloria. I'm a nurse and I'm going to leave notes for every patient I see that day. For Gloria." My daughter asked me who Gloria was, And now she wants to leave flowers for strangers, too. He read for 2 hours. He read until he was crying so hard he had to put the phone down and press his face into his pillow. People were responding, real people. A retired school teacher in Ohio who had lost her own mother 3 years ago wrote that she had been trying to find a reason to do something meaningful, and now she had one. A college student in London said he hadn't spoken to his mother in 2 years over a fight, and reading the post made him pick up the phone. A man named Theodore, Marcus noticed the name and held it in his chest like something sacred, from a city he didn't recognize, said he didn't know who Gloria was, but she sounded like someone worth honoring. By the morning of March 14th, the post had been shared over 200,000 times. By the morning of March 15th, her birthday, something extraordinary was happening. Marcus and Lily drove to the flower market early. They bought armfuls of tulips, Gloria's favorite, yellow and orange and bright as sunrise. They wrote small notes on pieces of cardstock, the handwriting a mix of his careful print and Lily's enormous loopy letters. You are not invisible. Someone today is rooting for you. You are enough. They walked through the city and gave them away, to a woman rushing toward a bus with a stroller and a look on her face like she was one more difficult thing away from collapse, to an old man sitting outside a coffee shop reading a newspaper so worn it had gone soft as cloth, to a teenager sitting alone on the steps of a library with headphones in and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept. The teenager looked up when Lily held out the tulip. She was maybe 15, 16. She looked at the flower, then at Lily, then at Marcus. "What's this for?" she asked. "It's our grandma's birthday," Lily said. "She gave things to people on her birthday instead of getting them, so we're doing it for her." The girl took the flower. She held it with both hands like it was something she was afraid to crush. She died, Lily said, with the plain honesty of children. "But we're still doing it." The girl nodded slowly. Something moved across her face that Marcus couldn't fully name, but he recognized it, the way you recognize a language you learned as a child and haven't spoken in years. "Okay," she said softly. "Happy birthday to her." They walked for 4 hours, and while they walked, the messages kept coming. A woman in Brazil had baked cookies and left them at a neighborhood fire station with a note that said, "For Gloria, whoever you are." A man in Japan had paid the train fare. For an elderly woman who couldn't find her card and then sent a photo of her face, surprised and grateful and small with age, captioned, "She reminded me of someone's mother." A kindergarten class in Canada had made cards for every person on their street with drawings of flowers and suns and the words "You matter" in large crayon letters. And the teacher had written underneath, "We learned about Gloria today." A school. Children who had never met his mother were drawing flowers in her name. Marcus had to sit down on a bench when he read that one. Lily climbed up beside him and leaned against his arm, and together they sat there in the thin March sunlight, and he let himself feel all of it, the grief and the gratitude and the strange, overwhelming sense that his mother had somehow gotten bigger since she died, that her reach had extended beyond anything a single life should be able to hold. "Daddy," Lily said. "Yeah, baby. Do you think she knows?" He thought about his mother sitting on a bench with a man named Theodore, asking him his name, staying for 40 minutes when she had somewhere else to be. He thought about every note she had ever left under a windshield wiper, every cup of coffee she had ever paid for, every stranger she had ever leaned toward with her whole warm-hearted self. He thought about a kindergarten class in Canada drawing suns. "Yeah," he said. "I think she knows." That evening, they went home and cut the lopsided cake. Lily had straightened one of the sugar flowers while it was still soft, so now it sat a little more upright than the others, proud and slightly crooked. Marcus put a candle in the center of the top layer,